with the Canadian government, covering much of present-day southern Alberta? A. Treaty 6. B. Treaty 7. C. Treaty 3. D. Treaty 11. Treaty 7 was signed the same decade Riel was organizing resistance further east. Canada's Indigenous nations experienced the same expansion-era pressure in different ways, some through treaty negotiation, some through armed resistance. Benito Juarez, who served as president of Mexico in the mid-1800s and remains a symbol of Indigenous representation in Mexican politics, belonged to which Indigenous people of Oaxaca? A. Maya. B. Nawa. C. Zapotec. D. Mixtec. In 1876, Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho forces defeated Custer's 7th Cavalry at which battle? A. The Battle of the Rosebud. B. The Fetterman Fight. C. The Battle of the Little Bighorn. D. The Battle of Wounded Knee. Warm-up's done. The stories get bigger from here. Keep adding to your score. After the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Sitting Bull led his followers north across the border into which country, where they lived in exile for 4 years? A. Canada. B. Mexico. C. The Dakota Territory. D. Montana Territory. After Little Bighorn, Sitting Bull and his followers crossed into Canadian territory near Wood Mountain, Saskatchewan. Northwest Mounted Police Inspector Walsh became Sitting Bull's primary liaison and close friend, earning the chief's trust by protecting his people from cross-border incursions and whiskey traders. The 1890 killing of several hundred Lakota men, women, and children by U.S. troops in South Dakota is known as what? A. The Sand Creek Massacre. B. Wounded Knee. C. The Washita Massacre. D. The Bear River Massacre. Which Pacific Northwest coast indigenous nation, based on the islands of Haida Gwaii, is especially renowned for carving tall cedar totem poles? A. Haida. B. Cree. C. Blackfoot. D. Mi'kmaq. In 1990, a dispute over the expansion of a golf course onto a Mohawk burial ground led to a 78-day armed standoff near which Quebec community? A. Kahnawake. B. Oka Kinesitake. C. Akwesne. D. Six Nations of the Grand River. Many of the land and treaty questions from the 1800s are still being fought over in modern times. Canada's primary framework governing Indigenous status, land, and local governance, first passed in 1876, is known as what? A. The Numbered Treaties. B. The British North America Act. C. The Constitution Act. D. The Indian Act. Which Chiricahua Apache leader evaded U.S. and Mexican forces for years across the borderlands before surrendering in 1886? A. Geronimo. B. Cochise. C. Victorio. D. Mongas Coloradas. That's it for round 2. We hope you haven't given up. A prolonged Maya uprising against Mexican state authority in the Yucatan Peninsula, beginning in 1847 and continuing into the early 20th century, is known as what? A. The Yaqui Wars. B. The Chichimeca War. C. The Caste War of Yucatan. D. The Mixton War. The Caste War of Yucatan was fought from 1847 to 1901, making it one of the longest-running indigenous uprisings in the Americas. Though major military campaigns ended around 1901, low-level skirmishes and resistance persisted until 1933. Which northern Mexican indigenous nation, based in Sonora, fought a prolonged series of conflicts against the Mexican state into the early 20th century, with thousands eventually deported to plantations in Yucatan? A. Tarahumara. B. Huacal. C. Seri. D. Yaqui. The Chichimeca War, 1550 to 1590, one of the longest and costliest indigenous resistance wars in colonial Mexican history, was fought over control of which resource-rich frontier? A. The Yucatan Peninsula. B. The Baja California Peninsula. C. The Sonoran Desert. D. The Zacatecas area. Remember quiz number 7, when New Spain's silver economy went head-to-head with New France's fur trade. This is the war that made that silver possible in the first place. Fought over the exact mining frontier around Zacatecas that turned New Spain into a silver powerhouse. On January 1st, 1994, an armed uprising demanding indigenous land rights broke out in which of Mexico's largely Maya southern state, timed to coincide with NAFTA taking effect. A. Oaxaca. B. Chiapas. C. Yucatan. D. Quintana Roo. In 1763, the same year as the Royal Proclamation restricting westward settlement, an Odawa-led indigenous alliance rose against British control of the Great Lakes region in a conflict known as what? A. The Yamasee War. B. The Tuscarora War. C. The Creek War. D. Pontiac's Rebellion. This uprising was a major reason the Crown drew that settlement line in the first place, which 20th century indigenous activist organization occupied Wounded Knee, South Dakota, for 71 days in 1973 to protest federal policy? A. The Red Power movement's Alcatraz occupation. B. The Trail of Broken Treaties. C. The American Indian Movement. D. The National Congress of American Indians. Two left in the double shot round. Get even one, and you truly know your Indigenous history. Canada's network of government-funded, church-run boarding institutions for Indigenous children, operating for over a century until the last closed in 1996, is known today as what? A. The reservation system. B. The Indian boarding school system. C. The residential school system. D. The potlatch ban. Which indigenous nation's dominance over the southern plains shaped Spanish, Mexican, and later American frontier policy for over a century? A. The Apache. B. The Lakota. C. The Kiowa. D. The Comanche. That's the double shot. However you scored, you came back for the hard stuff, and that's what counts. Subscribe, drop your score in the comments, and we'll see you again. Same time, same cup.